In Tatum, Texas, a woke school orders a boy to cut his long hair or identify as a girl. Too bad the kid didn't just claim to be a drag queen. They'd have given him the key to the city. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. It may be Monday, but the nonsense does not take a break for weekends. Today, a professor in Southern California is being credited with successfully guiding more than 1,000 children to become transgender. Plus, publicly funded universities are doing everything they can to promote hookup culture by hosting sex games and sexual competitions on campus. But we start with a really disturbing story in Texas where a 4-year-old boy with shoulder-length hair, African-American to boot, was told by superintendent to either cut it off or wear a dress and identify as a girl. So Randy Woodley is outraged after what she said a school superintendent told her grandson. This all started when the 4-year-old boy, Michael, known as Tink, T-I-N-K, arrived at school to meet his teacher but was told his hair needed to change.
And the superintendent then gave me 3 options. He told me that I could either cut it, braid it, and pin it up, or put my grandson in a dress and send him to school. And when prompted, my grandson must say he's a girl.
Let's reiterate this. The 3 options for little Tink is to either cut his hair, braid his hair, or pin it up and put a dress on Tink so that he can then go back to school and identify as a girl. These are the 3 options that the superintendent thought were wise to give to a 4-year-old boy.
Yeah, and you know what staggers me about this, again, if little Tink, and by the way, Tink is kind of a gender-bending nickname for this little boy, but if that little boy had simply shown up to school with long hair and wore a dress or said, my pronouns are she, and my pronoun is she, this would never have been an issue. But it's a bizarre thing, isn't it, that unless you formally claim the title, you seem to have lost your rights, right? You can't dress, you can't wear your hair the way you want. And it does suggest something even bigger than this story, that if you are transgender, all the cookies come your way. Oh, yeah. If you identify as transgender, if you make that brave move to undercut patriarchy and heteronormativity, even if you're playing or pretending, suddenly you are taken deadly serious. And every combination is made to make you happy, whatever it is that you want. But if you don't just borrow the title, then notice what happens here. Yeah, little boy's got to cut his hair.
And because you have to follow the school's dress code, which states no ponytails, ducktails, rat tails, male buns, or puffballs are allowed on male students. Hair shouldn't extend past the top of a t-shirt collar. However, of course, that little caveat is, unless you dress or claim to be transgender, then you're okay. So that's the thing. If you're, all you have to do in 2019 is say, I'm transgender, and you get everything.
You write your own ticket. But the thing that gets me is I can't imagine that this is going to be able to stand. How in this era of transgenderism, again, when you are providing radical ways to get out of dress codes, to avoid all sorts of traditional ways of behaving in the classroom, seems to me that being transgender opens up carte blanche. It's like a get out of school free card, basically. Absolutely. In many ways. Why, if you're a boy and you have long hair, can you not get away with the same thing? I mean, how can we make this double set of rules? They are doing it, and my gut tells me we're not going to get rid of the transgender get out of jail card. We're going to have to get rid of it. What if this boy, instead of being black, what if this was a 4-year-old Native American boy whose culture dictated that long hair on males signified something very important to the tribe? They still probably wouldn't have gotten away with it.
And what happens is this grandmother had told the school board, because she went to school board meeting and said, I'm going to be here at every school board meeting. And there are other parents who are claiming this has happened to them. We had a parent, Cameron Cox, who said, my son came home and said that, Mom, I think there's something wrong with my hair. And she said that with my son's dreadlocks, sometimes they do fall in front of his face. So I felt it would be easier to put his hair up, and then that's a problem. So they're claiming it is also a race and gender issue.
Well, and they'll pay attention to that too. The sad thing is that we live in a world where you can't make these rules anymore for anybody. Yeah. I mean, the transgenderism, and then you've got the racial component of this, like I said. Well, what if you are Native American, or what if my boy has dreadlocks, which has cultural significance to us and my family? What the school's going to have to do is get rid of this policy altogether.
Well, and that's what happens when everything, instead of it being about anything doing with intellectual or morality or anything, and turn every single thing into race, class, and gender, and this is what you get.
And it's really ridiculous when you think about it too, because this is just one more way where we see the little boy. It's going to work out. I'm 100% sure he's not going to have to cut his hair, and he's not going to have to declare himself a girl. I guarantee you that's not going to happen. However, to me, the bigger takeaway from this is we have completely transformed schools into petri dishes, right? This has nothing to do with education. None of this has a lick of anything to do. And I'm frustrated. Almost every story we talk about has nothing to do with what's going on in the actual school. We dutifully report how undereducated the kids are graduating, how their reading levels are hideously low. We're going to talk more about this today. How bad the overall low level of education they're getting, and this is what occupies all of the time of all of these public schools every day.
Now, before we move on to the next story, we want to talk about something very important. Every week, the Dr. Duke Show reaches tens of thousands of people on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Parler, and a dozen audio podcast platforms. Daily, we're covering stories you'll never hear on larger networks. And as we approach our 100th episode, can't believe we're there already, we're honored to say our videos have amassed more than 45 million views, and it's thanks to all of you out there. And we want to continue reaching millions more. So this is why we're asking for your support through our Patriot Club, which consists of a $25 monthly tax-deductible donation and keeps the cameras rolling. Your gift is more than you realize, as more moms and dads are tuning in every single day. Your support actually helps us educate them on what is happening in schools across the nation. But as you can see, there's more bang for your buck. When you sign up for the Patriot Club, we're going to send you a gift box of goodies. And every 3 months, we'll ship you a new gift to show our appreciation. Not just a one-time tumbler like some of those other shows out there. Please visit drdukeshow.com to pledge your support. Your donation literally keeps the lights on and the snarkiness in full supply. Again, visit drdukeshow.com and help keep shows like ours going strong for parents across the nation.
Moving on to our next story, this is kind of a very alarming one. We've got a professor who is also a medical professional who has guided over 1,000 children into new transgender identities.
So this story is actually done by Reuters, and it talks about this professor who's from the University of Southern California. We'll say it many times throughout the story. 1,000 children who have been guided into transgender identities. Her name is Johanna Olson Kennedy. She's an associate professor of clinical pediatrics at USC's Keck School of Medicine. Also is a medical director of the Center for Trans Youth Health and Development at Los Angeles Children's Hospital, which is the largest transgender youth clinic in the U.S. with about 750 patients. So Olson Kennedy advocates for gender-affirming treatment, and she compares kids who claim to be transgender as being like diabetic patients who need their insulin.
Yeah, that's what they are. Right. So it's always funny to me how quasi-scientists like this are constantly getting on your case for making unscientific arguments, right? We remember back in 08, 9, 10, 11 when the gay marriage thing really took off, actually 12, right? The first 4 years of Obama's term, he really didn't say much about gay marriage, and all of a sudden he woke up, right?
Yeah.
He evolved, right?
That's what he did.
And so when he couldn't be reelected again, and we kept hearing again and again and again how this was all a matter of genetics, in spite of the fact that a recent study came out to suggest that there is really not much of a link, if any link at all, between biology and DNA and sexual preference. And now with the transgender and professors like this now, it's not even biology anymore, because biology is the problem, right?
It's always the science.
It's right. Biology is the problem. Here now we have a situation where this is gender affirming, right?
Yes.
And notice what she does. Something that has no real basis in biology. Now she says she compares it to diabetes, right?
But the dangerous part of this is that she advises the minimum age for cross-sex hormones treatment at 8 years old. She's advocating, advising that these children as young as 8 start getting those hormones jacked up into you, because that's what you can do.
That's when they get the hormones, 8, which is 3 to 4 to 5 years before these kids go through puberty. Almost half the time they've been alive, yet they have to go before they hit puberty. And the fact remains is that while they get the gender hormone at 8, how young are they when they're being psychologically and socially groomed for this?
Well, some of them, she talks about in this story, too, about 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old. Right. And from the story itself, it says, of the 1,000 patients Olson Kennedy has dealt with, only one switched back to the natal gender. And clinical psychologist James Cantor, he's written in a different thing saying, basically what all of us have said, the majority of kids cease to feel transgender when they get older. It's kind of like they're just going through different things, but they will go to what their natural gender is. And Cantor cites research indicating that the rate of this desistance, as it's called, in transgender kids range from 54% to around 90%. Okay, so that's going to flip back. But Olson Kennedy's patients appear to be around that 0.1% because none of hers switch back.
So we've got a situation where you've got an actual quote-unquote gender doctor, pediatrician, arguing, right, that without any research, that transgenderism is like diabetes. No studies, no associations done. You got a real researcher telling you that these kids inevitably change back, or they have regrets, or they doubt what they had done, right? And so we've got real research, which I'm sure is being condemned by this professor and all the transgender advocates out there, that's just propaganda. See what happens now? You cite biology in the face of their unscientific revolution here when it comes to gender. You're engaging in scientific propaganda, but she's not when she likens transgenderism to diabetes.
And we won't go into the full story of this, but there's actually a 7-minute video out there of Olson Kennedy from 2017, basically explaining how she talked to one of her young patients into understanding, trying to convince that kid that they are the opposite gender. And she used Pop-Tarts as the example, basically being a strawberry Pop-Tart in a cinnamon Pop-Tart box. I won't go into it.
How
you can
scientific.
Find it. Very scientific.
Wow.
But she does actually, it's on record, she told the Human Rights Campaign that she's still unable to tell if a kid is actually trans.
That's
she
right.
says, in much of the current research about this, there isn't a clear consensus in the community or among providers. The truth is that we don't really know whether that child who is gender nonconforming in childhood is going to go on to have a trans identity in adolescence or adulthood.
And she admits it's all just made up. We don't know. There is no research. Diabetes. And I like to close it out with the Reuters story, where parents are being bluntly told by this therapist, right? In Reuters' story, you get an example of parents who are bluntly being told by therapists that their son, who identified as a girl, this doctor said, quote, "Your daughter already knows who she is. Now you have to decide, do you want a happy little girl or a dead little boy?" How is that for using no research, no real science to strong arm and twist the arms of parents? This little girl, this little boy who thinks he's a girl, and I wonder, 3, 4, 5 years old, this little girl who's born a boy actually will either be a happy little girl if you allow her to transition, or a dead little boy. He will kill himself, right? Because of you, Mom. If you don't allow your 6-year-old to transition, you will be responsible for his death. Whole lot of science behind that proposition in there.
That's where we're at.
Staggering.
And then by the time they get on to, going to the university, we get the universities telling them, hey, if you're transgender, if you're not transgender, boy, girl, doesn't matter. Let's just all have sex. That's where they're at. So college has been back for a few weeks now, and the campus organizations and the clubs, they're promoting their activities for the students, trying to, wrangle them in. And many, if not most, are also promoting about, now's the time to explore and be free sexually. And, here's how you can have great sex. And let's use the publicly funded universities to get all the free prophylactics we can. The Federalist actually highlighted basically all of this and what has been happening at these universities for the however many years now. All the different things like Sex Week that is on almost every single campus, or Sex Fest, which was at Northwestern University, or back in 2016 when the University of Chicago had their sexual pain workshop that encouraged students to try bondage and light electrocution and flogging.
You're counseling, University of Chicago, you're actually counseling kids in Sex Fair Week to beat each other and electrocute each other.
Sexual pain workshop.
Sexual pain workshop. And no one's talking about this aspect of this. We would not have what we have with the previous story. Radical children, babies, being taught to question their gender. Babies who couldn't spell gender, babies who have no abstract ability developed in their mind yet to even understand gender, being taught to question. We would not have had that had we not had 24 years of this radical sexual education, right? Starting in college, but going on with the comprehensive sex reform, going on in your kindergartens and your 5th graders and your 9th graders. What you've done is you've libertinized kids. You have made kids sexual beings younger and younger. This college stuff is a classical example of this. Why aren't the colleges waging this kind of a campaign for healthy eating? Now, again, is it any of the colleges' damn business? No. Is it any of the colleges or the universities' damn business to treat you or to allow fairs and programs and festivals on campus that teach you how to electrocute each other? No, it's not. But if you're going to do this, if you're going to engage in this social interventionism, why aren't you spending all of this time and money having healthy eating camps, right? Why not? How about exercise? How about camps and festivals that promote exercise? Or anything else that might be actually genuinely healthy living? No. It's always about sex. And why is it about sex? Because sex is the wedge that the progressive left are using to pry apart every traditional aspect of American culture. And it's being incredibly successful because nobody wants to fight this. In modern America, the Kardashians' America, Taylor, God blessed Swift's America, nobody wants to be seen as sexually prude. Yep. Nobody wants to be seen as being unhip, right? And that means that any kind of sex, anywhere, any way anybody wants it, teaching little kids about sex, this is hip, can't oppose that, right? But this is being used as a huge divisive wedge to destroy the culture, and it's working.
And you talk about the prudeness of it, and even the schools or any of the people who want to talk abstinence, they are then prude. And what happens is you get the CDC coming out just a couple years ago explaining basically how the cases of gonorrhea, chlamydia, and syphilis within the U.S. for ages 15 to 24, those late high school and college kids, it marked an unprecedented high. And the colleges are encouraging this, preventative steps to, instead of actually saying abstinence, maybe try that one, they're just saying different angles of ways to do this, of using 2 forms of contraception in various things.
And states like Colorado are considering laws that would make it illegal to talk about abstinence in the classroom. You can promote any kind of sex, you just can't promote abstinence. And it's even younger than that. There's a study that was done a couple of years ago now, I think it was, that children between the ages of 11 and 18, 20 to 25% of children between the ages of 11 and 18 had already contracted some sort of sexual disease.
Would not doubt it. But the other thing that we talk about, and we're hearing cases on a daily basis almost now of cases happening on the college campuses where there's accusations of sexual assault and, who's at fault and who's to blame, and this hookup culture and who's right and who's wrong. Well, back in 2013 already, they said about 80% of college students reported participating in some sort of a hookup experience. And Mental Health America reported that women who are specifically in college are 3 times more likely to be victims of sexual assault than just women in general. So if you're looking at all these statistics and adding them all up, and this is that the university is the one pushing this on them, you wonder why we have so many issues.
I would say I seriously doubt campus reporting on college rape. You look at what they classify as a sexual assault. It could be something as simple as a joke. It's bizarre. But your bigger point, I think, is the correct one, that you can't have it both ways. You can't be driving kids at the college or at the high school level to participate in radical forms of left. You can't be stigmatizing kids who are virgins. You can't be stigmatizing kids who don't want to electrocute each other's genitals. You can't be doing that. If you're having these fairs and you're pushing this lifestyle stuff on college kids, and then you turn around and tell them, oh, but consent is everything, right? College is not a place of liberation. It's not a place where you find your individuality. It is a place where the pressures to conform are greater than perhaps anywhere else in the country today.
Well, we're going to put a stamp on it and send it through the mail for this Monday's episode of The Dr. Duke Show. Just a reminder, this Thursday, we're opening up the mailbag for office hours, so get those questions in by tonight. Do you have a question from us? Visit freedomproject.com/askduke to submit it. Again, get it in by the end of tonight. As always, please share the episode and subscribe to the free audio podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, and everywhere else. Just visit drdukeshow.com and click on any of the platforms on the top to subscribe. Remember, it's free.
And that's Monday. As we mentioned earlier, every day our team comes together with the mission of educating parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles about what is happening in schools. By supporting this show through our Patriot Club, you are helping us reach more families. Just visit thedrdukeshow.com to make your tax-deductible monthly pledge. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friend.